Hello everybody. Today I am going to discuss about phylum Echinodermata, also known as Echinoderms. Echinoderms, the name itself is derived from the Greek word echino, means spiny, and derma means skin. They only live in marine habitats and they have pentaradial symmetry as adults. They also have endoskeleton that comprise of ossicles. And these ossicles are made up of calcium carbonate compounds. They also have water vascular system that is unique only for them. They have nervous system but no brain. Instead, it is a nerve net, nerve ring, and radial nerves. These nerves have sensory neurons and react to different stimuli, like for example, detecting chemical changes, capturing a prey, and to move in response to stimulus. Echinoderm evolved from bilaterally symmetric animals, exhibiting fivefold radial symmetry in portions of their body at some stage of life. The crinoids from the class Crinoidea, such as the sea lilies and feather stars, are considered to be most primitive, earliest to evolve of the echinoderm Species. Species. Echinoderms first appeared around 530 million years ago. They are found as fossils in rocks of all ages and are still common in oceans across the world. Characteristics of pentaradial symmetry. The larvae have bilateral symmetry. So when we talk about bilateral symmetry, it is divided into halves. Like for example, this larvae of a starfish here, it is divided into halves. And this portion over here is equivalent to the portion over here, and that what makes them equal. So that is what we call bilateral symmetry. Adults have pentaradial symmetry. They have 5 arms or any multiple of 5 arranged around an oral arboreal axis, and it allows for uniform distribution of sensory and feeding structure. Characteristics of water vascular system. Modification of coelom. When we say coelom, it is the body cavity that the surrounds the digestive system or any other organs that can be found in the center of the echinoderm. It is also primarily used for locomotions, also for feeding, gas exchange, which is the respiration, and diffusion of water. So, para sa dagdag na kaalaman, ang mga echinoderms ay walang organs for excretion. So in order to excrete waste, they diffuse it. They also have water-filled canals that end in tube feet, an ampulla that contracts and forces water into the tube foot. It functions like a vacuum. So a tube foot looks like this, the yellow one. Water moves into the body in this order. First, muagi siya sa madiporite. Then it will go through the stone canal, which is this. And the water will travel around this ring canal. After traveling around there, The water will be distributed into the radial canal, which is this. And after that, the water will go to lateral canal, which is here, can be found here. Small tubes na connected to the ampulla. These matchsticks look-alike are what we call ampulla. And over the ampulla are the tube feet. Echinoderm diversity. So the first class is the class Asteroidea, means star shape, and most are brightly colored, and size is dependent on diet, not on age. The more this organism eat, the bigger the size it get also. They eject cardiac stomach during feeding. So, nilalabas nila ang kanilang tiyan pag sila ay kumakain. At if the food or the prey enter their stomach, they put it back inside and digest it. Example of it is the sea star. This is a sea star, which is very common for us. Second is the class of Uroidea, means snake tail. It has central disc, has a pentagon shape. Tube feet do not have suction disc, unlike Asteroidea. Example of this is brittle stars. As you can see sa gitna, may pentagon shape. And the other example is the basket stars, which also have pentagon shape in the center. The third class is the class Echinoidea, means spiny shape. They use their spine to push against substrate to move. So, example of this is the sea urchins and sea dollars. Sea urchins in Bisaya is tuyum. So, kaning mga tuyum, they use their spine to push the substrate. For example, they live in stones. They push stones in order for them to move. And this is what a sea dollar looks like. The fourth class is the class Holotoroidea. They have enlarged tube feet that surround around their mouth as tentacles. Contract body wall to move like worms, known as earthworms of the sea, capable of evisceration. Evisceration is ejection of internal organs. The purpose of this evisceration is for I'm sorry for the interruption. The purpose of this evisceration is to act as their defense strategy. Bale, they defend themselves from potential predators like crabs and fish. So, kumbaga, ginalabas nila ang kanilang organs para takutin ang mga predators. So, the last one is the class Crinoidea, means lily shape. It looks like a flower here in the center. And they're the most primitive of all living echinoderms. They are the oldest one. Sea lilies attach permanently to substrate. So as you can see, this lily was attached in a substrate in its environment. Feather stars, like this. At first glance, akalain mo para siyang ibon, but it is a feather stars and it belongs in class Crinoidea. They swim by lowering and raising arms. So, gaganyan-ganyan sila parang lumalangoy sila. Exa- Example of this, again, is the sea lilies and feather stars. Next is the echinoderm feeding. Asteroidea feed on snails, bivalves, crustaceans, and corals. They have two stomachs, the cardiac, large, where they eject their stomach outside, and the pyloric, small, which they digest the food inside the body. Ophiurida are predators or scavengers. They use their arms or tube-like feet to sweep in. Para parang ginapapunta nila yung yung food gamit yung tube feet nila or arms nila patungo dun sa mouth nila. And trap plankton. Echinoidea, they feed on algae, coral polyps, and dead animal remains. They chew. So, ngumuya sila ng pagkain. The chewing apparatus is known as Aristotle lantern. So, this is the example of Aristotle lantern. Next is the Holotoroidea. The mucus and tentacles traps food and then thrust tentacles into mouth to wipe off food, like wiping our faces after we eat some food. Class Crinoidea, primarily suspension feeders, outstretched arms to trap plankton, and the cilia will carry it to the mouth. So when we say suspension feeders, for example, the sea lilies, they can't move, so they have to stay in their substrate where they attach permanently. So in order to eat, they rely on the suspension of food in their environment. If there is, kung tayo na ay matrap sa ilahang outstretched arms, that's the time that the cilia will carry it to their mouth. Like, they don't do anything, like they don't move just to eat, just to find food. They ginapasagdan lang nila ang environment, or ginapasagdan lang nila nga naay matrap sa ilaha para makakaon sila, like that. Next is the echinoderm reproduction. So at this part, the word dioecious is repeated. So dioecious is the separate organs of male and female, and they are also in separate individual. The class is Steroidea. They are dioecious with two gonads, so they have two organ system on each arm. In spawning season, the female release approximately 65 million eggs at once, and they perform fertilization externally. So when the eggs were fertilized and became larvae, these larvae are free swimming. Next is Ophiuroidea. The same also, they are dioecious and fertilized externally. But in some species, zygote develops in the pouch at the base of the female's arm. Next is the class Echinoidea. Again, they are dioecious, where gametes shed into water for external fertilization. Next is the class Holotoroidea, also dioecious, but compared to class Steroidea, they only have single gonad, and still they fertilize externally. The last one is the class Crinoidea. They are monoecious or dioecious. I don't know how to pronounce this, but I guess this is monoecious species. The sperm develop first, and their reproduction are cross-pollination. Echinoderm regeneration. The, up- the ability to regenerate or regrow lost or destroy parts is well developed in echinoderms, especially sea urchins, sea lilies, starfishes, and brittle stars, all of which can regenerate new arms if existing ones are broken off. Sea cucumbers exhibit a high capacity of regeneration, such that following ejection of inner organs such as digestive organ in a process called evisceration, the lost organs regenerate. So, this picture shows an evisceration. So, ginalabas ng sea cucumber ang kanyang organs in order to defense himself itself. But then the lost organs will still regenerate, and that is the power of Phylum Echinodermata. As you can see in the second picture, the arm of the starfish was cut, but then it still regenerated. And even though at the third picture, the whole arm, or even though the three part layer of the arm was cut, still it will regenerate. It will regenerate. Echinoderms extinction. Human beings, as we continue to grow in numbers, have lasting impact on many different animal species. The fishing industry has a large impact on the survival of echinoderms. So, the more the fishing industry gets the substantial amounts of echinoderms diet, they reduces the food available for these organisms. Parang, kumbaga, ninanakaw natin ang dapat na para sa kanila. Next is the pet trade. Also, has several direct effects on many species of echinoderms. The big part of it is the collecting of corals and live rock for sale in many countries. These corals are binibenta nila, and we all know that the corals or these live rocks are the habitats of these echinoderms. They need these habitats for their protection. So, if ever we remove them, the echinoderms were unable to protect themselves. And also, humans didn't just trade these corals, but they also trade starfish, sea urchins, sea cucumbers, sea lilies, and brittle stars out of their natural habitat to directly sold in the pet trade. But in most Asian countries, echinoderms was used as our food. They make sushi from echinoderms like that, and any other type of foods. Humans play a large role in the habitat destruction affecting many echinoderm species, which is very true. Humans also have large carbon footprint, and sorry for the and as we are releasing large amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, the pH of the oceans is slowly rising. This slight increase in pH is not detrimental to adults in all species currently, but it has significant impact on the sensitive species of echinoderms. This effect can be severe Just a change of zero point 0.2 units of pH leads to 100% more mortality rate in 8-day-old common brittle stars. So imagine gaano kalaki ang gaano kalaki ang epekto na natin sa mga kawawang nilalang na ito. But to aid and conserve these echinoderms, we can do something. And it is very necessary to improve the collection of data to quantify the extent of harvesting echinoderms, and to document the location and catch data by species. It is also necessary to develop a global database of echinoderm species to summarize information on biology, ecology, threats, monitoring, and conservation, beyond increasing the number of echinoderm species to be protected. It is important to improve the conservation management of already protected species. So still, we can do something to prevent the extinction of these echinoderms. So that's the end of my report. That's all. Thank you.